Hello, and welcome to the Cognitive Edge. I am Dr. Daniel Sabol, and today I want to discuss an issue that affects nearly every school, classroom, and library. This is one that probably many people wonder. It's how to identify an educational gap and determine when technology can help close it. It's basically how instructional designers work. So, schools, they're surrounded by technology. We have learning management systems, artificial intelligence tools, adaptive learning platforms, digital textbooks, assessment, dashboards. We have educational apps, virtual reality, and we have countless subscription services. But this is um, a problem. So too often, schools will purchase the technology first and then try to figure out what problem it's supposed to solve. Um, that approach is like sort of like a backwards learning type of a thing, or it's wasting some money. So technology should never be the starting point. The educational need should be. The first question should not be what new technology should we be purchasing or should we buy? Really, the first question should always be what are our students struggling to learn, understand, or accomplish? And so I would sit down and fold a piece of paper in three, and I'd begin writing different things about um, an educational gap, and that let me just explain that first is basically the difference between where learners currently are and where we want them to be. So, for example, students may struggle to read grade level material or evaluate online information or solve misstep mathematical problems, multi-step mathematical problems. I apologize. Um, Organize research, participate in classroom discussions, or retain important concepts. So, teachers may also experience gaps. They may have difficulty identifying which students need support, providing timely feedback, differentiating instruction, tracking student progress, or finding appropriate resources. And librarians also may notice that students can search Google but cannot evaluate whether a source is reliable or credible, for that matter. Um, School leaders, they tend to discover that families are not receiving important information or that students are falling behind because communication isn't consistent. Um, so these are all educational gaps. And it's basically a shortfall or a shortcoming in learning or a space that's missing um, in a student's knowledge. Okay. So before selecting a technology, we must really understand the problem and the cause of the problem, right? I mean, that makes sense. So imagine that students are performing poorly on reading assignments. It really is tempting to purchase a reading application immediately. I mean, that's the normal first step in a progression. But the low performance could have several causes. Students may lack vocabulary. The reading material may be too difficult. You know, students may not have background knowledge that they need. Some students, they may need audio support. So I would have that three-folded sheet of paper, and I would write down the problems, the difficulties, and how we solve them. So let's jump into others may have some difficulties concentrating or may not understand the purpose of an assignment. And this is all would be included on that sheet of paper that I had. A new application will not automatically solve all these problems, and I didn't know that in my head. So, um, and this is why educators, they really need to investigate before investing. We really look at the evidence, and this is where my sheet comes into play. So, we would examine some student work, assessment results, classroom observations, attendance patterns, teacher feedback, family concerns, library usage, and student surveys. Um, Sometimes we may ask students directly about where they're struggling. Sometimes students know exactly what's getting in their way, but really we learn that nobody has asked them what exactly it is that's getting in their way. So, together as educational technologists, um, we meet with the teachers and librarians, and basically, teachers, they see the academic problems in the classroom, while librarians see the gaps, say, in research, reading, information literacy, or technology use. Um, when the educators share information, our work becomes easier to understand because we're able to um, grab the gap that it becomes clearly identified, and then we ask whether technology is it the best solution or the best way to go. Not every educational problem requires an application. Sometimes students just need more direct instruction. Sometimes they need smaller groups, additional practice, clearer explanations, additional practice, better resources, stronger relationships, or just plain and simply more time to grasp a concept, especially if it's new. Technology should support effective teaching and not replace it. When technology is appropriate, choose the tool that is based on the function it provides. For example, if a student needs immediate feedback, a digital formative assessment tool may help. Teachers can use short quizzes, polls, or exit tickets to quickly identify misunderstandings. Um, if students are reading at all different levels, and we begin using adaptive reading software that may provide individualized passages and practices. Um, However, teachers must still review the data and provide human support as well. So um, we look at students and how they struggle to organize their research. Librarians, they look at or introduce a digital research guide, citation manager, a note-taking platform, or a library database tutorial. Um, if students have difficulty evaluating online sources, for instance, educators can use interactive lessons that allow students, say, compare websites to identify bias, check authorship, and verify evidence. If students face language barriers, translation tools, multilingual resources, captions, and text to speech technology also may improve access. If students have disabilities, assistive technologies may make learning more accessible. For instance, screen readers, speech to text, um, enlarged text, alternative keyboards, audiobooks, captions, visual schedule, and that could help remove barriers that have nothing to do with the student's intelligence or potential, really. These are very little things that we just move out of the way to help the student. Um, and If a teacher cannot easily track student growth, a data dashboard may help organize assessment results. So keep in mind that a dashboard is only useful if teachers understand the information and have enough time to respond to it. Yesterday, I did a video about teachers being overwhelmed already, which you could watch and you could find at danielsabol.org if you look. But more data does not automatically create better teaching. Sometimes it simply creates more colorful confusion. Really, when we look at things, we want to consider whether the technology is easy to use, whether a tool may have excellent features, but if teachers need hours of training just to open it, then we're not going to get the adoption that we want. And so we'll find limited use of that tool. The best technology is not necessarily the most advanced tool. It is the tool that teachers and students can use consistently, safely, and also effectively to break that gap. So before making a large purchase, really, we run a small pilot. We test the technology. We may pick one classroom or a grade or one department or one library program. Ultimately, we establish a baseline before the pilot even begins. So we ask, what can students really do now before, introducing the software to that baseline classroom. Then we ask, how long does the task take? What errors really are occurring? How confident are teachers and students with the technology? After the technology is introduced, measure the same areas again. Then we ask ourselves, did students' understanding improve? Did any errors decrease? Did teachers save any time? Did students become more independent? Really, did access improve for students with disabilities or with language needs? Did participation increase? We don't judge success by the number of logins, because somebody could log in and out 60 times. It could be a teacher who's, like we said, struggling to learn how to use the system and could be logging in and out because it's difficult to understand. So a student can log into a platform every day and still learn very little. So don't judge success by how excited people were during the first week. New technology is often exciting simply because it's new. The real question is whether the educational gap became smaller. We also think about, as educational technologists, privacy, cost, accessibility, support, and long-term sustainability. We really need to know who owns the student data, what information is being collected, because we have a lot of different laws and guidelines we have to follow. Does this platform include advertising? Are we going to be letting advertising come into the school, which is probably not a good idea? Can the school afford the tool after the introductory price ends? Because it tends to be lower and then it shoots up. Will it work with the school's existing systems and across multiple platforms? Is technical support available, and I mean really available? Can all students use it, including those who do not have reliable internet access at home? These questions are not obstacles to innovation. Really, they're part of responsible innovation. That the goal really becomes not to place more technology in classrooms. Okay. The goal is to improve learning and make a useful process as simple as it can be. So first, we identify the desired learning outcome. Second, we examine the evidence and we locate the gap. Third, we determine why the gap exists. What's happening? What's the true problem that's going on there? And what barriers are there that are creating it? So, fourth, we decide whether technology is appropriate or not. Fifth, we select the smallest and the most effective tool. Um, that may not, always, it's not always the most expensive tool that's the best. Six, we test it with a limited group of students, and then we evaluate whether the tool actually improves learning. So we always ask educators to remember that technology is a tool and not a strategy, so to speak. A tablet is not a lesson plan, where you just put a student on a game or something and let them just play. Artificial intelligence is not a teacher. A dashboard is not an intervention. An application is not a relationship. And technology can really provide access, feedback, practice, organization, creativity, and personalization. But meaningful learning still requires thoughtful educators who understand their students. Um, the best educational technology really, the decision begins by listening. We do a lot of listening to our students. We listen to our teachers, as I've already said. We really listen to the librarians. They're able to go around and they're helping teachers a lot. We listen to the families because families a lot of times will have barriers to getting to student information. We look really carefully at the evidence that currently exists. We really identify the true need, and then we choose technology that supports the people doing the learning and teaching. Um, when schools begin with the gap instead of the gadget or the technology, then learning becomes more purposeful, more affordable, and it's more likely to make a real difference in the students' day-to-day life. Thank you for joining me on the Cognitive Edge. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm Dr. Daniel Sabol. And real quick, what educational gaps have you noticed in your school, classroom, or library? This is a question to ask. And what technology, if any, could help address it? Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with teachers, librarians, school leaders, and anyone interested in creating more thoughtful and effective learning, and or those who are interested in becoming ed technologists. Because again, we do love to teach new individuals to the role. So all we're trying to do is solve that knowledge gap, and it could be as simple as adjusting a database or logging into a new portal or something very simple. And that's kind of how we play our day-to-day work. All right, bye-bye.